Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Overhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is Leigh Grode. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you. So, go on. Yes.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I would like to start with a question with which you can take your time to share how you got to where you are today. So how did you come to see the world the way you do today?
It's such a wonderful question. It's a lifetime of experience, starting when I was probably about 4 years old. I was asked by my grandmother to go down and get my great-grandmother for dinner. We were up at our summer home upstate New York. And I went down, and it was a Friday night, and I went to the screen door to open it, and I was a witness to my great-grandmother doing the Sabbath prayers by putting a shawl on her head, lighting the candles, and there was this silent moment with the candles burning, and it blew me over. It just was this energy that came and washed over me, and I was, whoa, what was that? From that moment forward, I have been chasing life looking for awe. And that's how it started. This lifetime, I've come to understand that what I experienced today, I had decided prior to being born. And I chose the elements of learning for my soul expansion in this lifetime before incarnating, down to my parents, down to everything. But when I was young, I was unaware of these truths. The family I came through was a lot of immigrants and then my mother's generation and my father's generation, and they were American born. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of violence at times. It's very disruptive. For many years, I didn't understand why, when others had other kind of life circumstances, why did I have this life circumstance? I found drugs when I was 9 years old. Some people can get high, party, and then put it down and never pick it up again. I, on the other hand, have a different experience in this lifetime of addiction, and I got hooked, and I did drugs till I was 27 years old. That also opened up chakras in ways that, as Gandhi once said, you only have to open the chakra once. You don't have to blow it open. But I blew it open. That also imprinted into my overall well-being and my experience of this lifetime. I also overdosed on drugs at the age of 17 and had a near-death experience. I would find recovery at the age of 27. I just celebrated 40 years clean and sober in a 12-step program, actually this last Friday. And I've been really taking a look at this particular question and how I didn't learn things in the moment necessarily. I had the experiences, and then I would step back, and in time, through different forms of assistance and life experiences, I would start to see what the lessons were, how the lessons were, how they would affect me, how my perspective would change, how it wouldn't change, where I was stuck, where I wasn't stuck. This was a lifelong journey. I am a woman who has had those burning bush experiences. I've had communion with the highest form of God, Goddess, all there is. I have gone through experiences prior to recovery where I was in a program to try and get off of drugs because I had an issue that I kept falling in love with girls, and it was the 70s, and it was not legal or cool to be gay. And I was really quite upset that I didn't feel like my peers. I felt different than my peers. I saw how the girls my age acted, and I didn't think, feel, or think anything like they did, and I was aware of that. And when I hung out with guys, it was not on a sexual basis. It was more on a peer basis, and being able to communicate and get ahead and do things like that. And they didn't quite allow me that freedom with them all the time. It always at one point or another turned into a sexual encounter or an attempt at a sexual encounter. I was so confused for so many years of my youth. Then with recovery eventually came a therapy. I needed therapy. There were a lot of wounds, or what I perceived as wounds. And I learned that those wounds were lessons. Those were the lessons I chose before birth. Every single one of those violent experiences allowed me to expand and grow in a level of understanding of humanity, but also of the emotional pathway of healing. That if I had a perspective change, then I would have a perspective ending. I learned how to change the end of the story. And so I was 3 years clean, and I moved to Amsterdam to go to school. And boy, that was a lot in those moments. I was very young, and I had 3 years clean. That's not a lot of years clean. And I really believed, the power of belief, the internal power of belief that aligns with knowing, even not knowing what we know, but there's this feeling that's called knowing that exists in every single one of us. It's an alignment with the highest form of creation. And we may not get the specifics quite clearly, but we have an overall sense. And like when I was invited to go study at the University of Amsterdam, the Universiteit van Amsterdam, I thought there'd be recovery every single day like it was in San Francisco at the time. And surprise, surprise, there wasn't. It was 1 day a week. And that was kind of freaky. But I stayed clean. I didn't do drugs, where it's really easy to do drugs in Amsterdam. Very easy. And the junks loved me because I had that same kind of energy, even though I was clean and they were using. But what happened when I lived in Holland is I had my second near-death experience, January 3rd, 1991, and that was a major event. That was a major interruption. That was a major course correction, a reordering of sorts, where 3 men brutally beat me into the ground. And I left my body after they kicked my right hip through my rib cage, bashing my head into the ground over 80 times, if not more. I can't tell you. I wasn't counting. I sat up and I left. And in that experience, that changed. That was a total reordering of everything. For a kid who grew up in a home where there was such fighting and craving of love and curiosity about love, not sex, but love, and going up and transmuting into this space, still having my personality and being in this incredible space, this gorgeous, incredible energetic field, and to be met and told to go back into my body. Well, my personality didn't like that. And I argued. And the response to my arguing was a complete silence, a deafening silence. That was a big lesson. It's a lesson that has affected me to this moment still. So in that silence, I recognized the stillness of that silence. I recognized the juiciness of the love, that nothing was taken away in that silence. If anything, things were brought forward in that silence. And then I was asked again to go back in my body, and I aligned with the idea of yes and got sucked back into my flesh. The human experience I learned through that experience and reclaiming Leigh at that time was there was something other, the soul. I didn't know the words exactly yet, but I knew that there was something more than the physical experience my body was experiencing and what was meant to be. It wasn't meant that if I got beat, they busted up my bones. It wasn't meant that that was my life, to live as a person with busted bones. It was another opportunity for curiosity and adventure without knowing that was curiosity and adventure. Just by learning in recovery, we say put one foot in front of the other and take the next step. Unfortunately, I couldn't walk when I first was recovering. I was blind for 2 weeks. I had physical maladies but that experience gave me the opportunity to truly ask for help. At that point, I was accepted to the Netherlands Film and Television Academy, and I was doing coursework for both San Francisco State University, Universiteit van Amsterdam, and the Netherlands Film and Television Academy. And I spent my first summer, the summer of '89, traveling throughout Eastern and Western Europe, and it was before the wall came down. And I had a thesis I wanted to verify, and my thesis was a comparative study to aids to the Holocaust. How, as a society, do we survive large numbers of death? That was my curiosity. That was my focus. And this is before computers and phones, personal phones, and everything was snail mail and telephone calls that cost a lot of money to call. It was very expensive. That was one of my Achilles tendons, was my phone bills. And I do say I'm a lot. Okay. The information I was getting and the appointments I was able to set up, and then I spent that summer traveling from concentration camp to concentration camp, and having appointments with the bibliothèque, and going in there to their special files and reading the microfiche and getting copies and doing all this stuff and getting all this research. And I did this research for 4.5 years. And I started in America, but I continued for 3 years in Holland and all over Eastern and Western Europe and the UK. And I met people and I interviewed them, and I was learning about that moment. And prior to that, a big influence also was that I was gay, and I did live in America with AIDS as an epidemic here, and I watched people drop dead that were my age, and I was young, and that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men and some women too just died, and they were rejected on every level. And that impacted my life. And with each of those experiences, I recognized that there was more to be understood as an overall society, not about responsibility, but about how to move forward. How does one heal? How does one have a good quality of life? How do you get there? And that was my journey. That's been my journey. And then coming back to America, I would meet my partner, Joan, and tomorrow we celebrate 32 years together. And the course of learning how to be a partner in a relationship, in an intimate relationship, was also one of my greatest teachers, because I didn't have the tools. I was not taught how to have a loving relationship by my family. I was not. They never learned it. How are they going to teach it? So that was the next part of my journey with recovery, with therapy, with finding out that that many people say they're broken. Maybe some of them are. I can't speak for anyone else. But for me, I felt broken, but I was not broken. I just didn't learn the things I needed to do. And I needed to be able to build my tool chest, my spiritual, my emotional, and my physical tool chest to live life on life's terms here, now. So all these experiences have led me to this place where now I look at things as gifts. And I don't mean it in a cliche woo-woo way. I sat for 25 years at the feet of a guru that I did do. I didn't devote my everything to this person, this being, but except the thing I did devote was my commitment to the truth, the absolute divine truth. That if you are BSing me, I know it. I may not say it, but I'm not going to play with it. I don't dance with that kind of stuff. There's plenty of people to go play with around here, not me. So where I sit today is in an evolution, in an expansion. In recovery, I feel like I have crossed several invisible lines. And I just crossed another one just recently. January brought the loss of my mom and my wife's mom. They died 16 days apart. And that was another interruption, an upheaval, and a reordering. When my dad died in 2015, that was another interruption and reordering. 2016, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my head, and I had to have a 10.5-hour surgery. That was one of the biggest reordering. When I woke up after the surgery, I couldn't breathe on my own. And I remember closing my eyes. My wife was screaming, "Breathe, Leigh, breathe." And for the life of me, I couldn't breathe. And I just closed my eyes and I said, if you want me, now it's my time. If it's my time, then take me and take me quickly. And if it's not my time, help me, because I can't do this. Asking for help is a big part of this life. We're not solo artists. We're a community of souls. We're a vortex of energetic fields. We're many vortexes of energetic fields. So what does this bring me? It gave me the ability to, after my surgery and the recovery, I started, I got a message, another direct message, same voice I heard when I transitioned up there, said to me, it's time to knock it off and stop with, we have a bakery business, stop with the bakery and start doing the work you came here to do. Not more than 6 weeks later, I found out about this teacher who would help me reorder and allow myself to actually tap the tools I've already had since I was a wee little girl and start channeling, vocal channeling. And I've been doing that actively for 8 years now. And actually 9 years. I just realized that 9 years. And that I am blessed with the ability to communicate with all living beings, and that I have the ability to speak with discarnates and help them raise up their frequency. So my work today is about frequency. It's about levels of energy. I do sound bowl healings. I don't call them baths. I call them washes, because the vibration washes over you and allows you to rise up. You don't sit in your own schmutz in a tub. You know what I mean? It washes over and it cleanses you. So the reality is I'm not doing that to be she, woo, woo. I'm doing that because that's what I need to do. And that's what's calling to my soul. And that the meditations and the working with people to clear what stands in the way of them being who they were born to be. That's what I do. That's what I came here to do. But before I could be experiencing fully, presently, and still hungry and curious to grow more. It's not over. I'm not done. I have no idea what tomorrow brings. I don't have any idea what this afternoon brings. But the reality is I'm present. I'm excited. It's not been easy. This is, grief is a really intense emotion that takes you through things. But if you don't run from it, if you don't run from anything, if you sit there and you say, okay, I'm willing to walk through it, then you receive the gifts of a clarity. It's not necessarily an understanding. I believe we have to accept things. We don't have to understand them, but we have to accept them in order to open the window, the space, the part of our brain that needs to be reordered, because I really believe this isn't about removing parts of ourselves to grow. This is about assimilating every experience that we came here to experience and have it become a gift and a tool to help someone else or to help ourselves say, oh, of late I've been experiencing memories. I've been doing these incredible meditations where looking for karma, like understanding what is karma. I spent all these years in a Hindu tradition. What I learned in that tradition was, it's not about good karma or bad karma. It's about no karma. And how do you achieve no karma? What does that mean to be in the space of no karma? How does it mean, to let go of your ego? What does that mean? And it means really to be quiet and not let your personality jump in front and push and change. And sometimes it means sitting still and just listening. Sometimes it means just breathing. Sometimes it means laying on the floor in a fetal position and just wailing. Whatever it is not necessarily the definite or defined path forward for everybody. We're all individuals, but we come together to share, to clear, to be able to experience the love, the divine love of all beings. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's a brilliant question. Thank you for that. And is there
It's a very, very important thing to look at, right? How you got to where you are. And you might want to share a little bit about the messages you got when you channel, or when you were in these other realms, as some people call it, when you are in a near-death experience.
Sure. I'm getting a lot of messages the question being to share the experience of the messages and the other worlds, the other dimensions of existence. Well, number one, we're living at a very rich time. Every time has been a very rich time, but particularly right now, because there's a lot of planetary, energetic, electromagnetic alignments that's occurring from the sun and from other planets, other galaxies, where you have visitations constantly. There are those among us who were not humanoid. Some of them may be hybrid and partially humanoid, but there are non-humanoid beings and that are here to guide us and help us. Some of them had their own agendas. But the messages that I'm getting is, one of the things that struck me was to be able to speak with an alien, let's say, for lack of a better word, especially from like the Pleiades or from the Seven Sisters, Sirius, or other galaxies, Andromeda even. They won't come near you if you're full of yourself, because there's no room to communicate. There needs to be an open door. And the reality is that this open door occurs when we're in like that, not that we have to walk around in meditative state, but open-eyed meditation is a really good idea to practice because when you are open-eyed and you're experiencing nature or whatever it is, then there's an opening, and then telepathy can begin. But if your brain is so occupied with you, me, there's no room. And there's no trust that it's for the highest good. If somebody is so wrapped up in themselves or is blaming everything and anyone, there's no room, and it's not an open situation. Not a lot of people, there are a considerable amount of people, but there's not everybody in the community of the world, not a spiritual community, but in the world at large, is open or willing to let go of their personality. That's a very vulnerable state to exist in. It's a matter of practicing I don't know. How do you stay in I don't know? Well, it's a practice. And the only way to build a muscle is to exercise. An oefening, as they say in Dutch. It's very important to practice not knowing, because that's the path to living. Knowing is limited and a shut door. How can you share a dialogue with somebody, really a dialogue with somebody, where you merge your ideas and your beliefs and be in awe, live in awe? If you're shut down, you're removed. So a lot of the work I do with clients is to help them find those moments when they're making those choices and to make another choice. It's all about making a choice, having a perspective. And they visit, they come. It starts with telepathy. I do this ask, listen, and write exercise. I still do it for the last 9-10 years. I just write a question and I just go into the I don't know space and I get the answers. I get all the answers. Being in the other realm, being in a place where I'm open and receiving information, or having Sebastian is my guide's name, having Sebastian come through me. He speaks with an Irish brogue, so it's very different. And I'm not present when he's speaking. Like, he pushes me out of the way. I have to record to find out what he says. And he actually told one of my friends, she was a client at the time, about the fires that we just had here. And she lived in Pacific Palisades. And he told her that when the fires come, and they're coming, and they're going to be all around you, and everybody's going to be in chaos, gather up all of your family and all your precious gems and prepare to leave and not come back. And she did. The first sign of the fires, she remembered Sebastian saying that. She left. She got a new home in West Hollywood, California, and she moved in with all her babies and her new coming baby and the dog and cats and the chinchillas, and all of them are safe out of the fire's way. I didn't know I said that because I didn't say it. Sebastian said that. And I was like, well, good on you. I know when he speaks to me now, it's really about this planet and the importance of the love, and to not be distracted or derailed from love. That all of this is illusion. There's the belief system, which not everybody has, but other than we need time and space because we have flesh. Without flesh, there's no real need for time and space because we're not aging anymore. So without that, it's all illusion. It's not it's for the benefit of the flesh. It's not for the benefit of the soul. So therefore, it's called an illusion. So when Sebastian speaks to people, and he comes through. He sometimes wants to come through right now, like right now, and he's very direct. This one woman was like, well, how do I make things with my family right? And basically he told her it's not her family, it was her. She was it was her issues. She had no boundaries. She surrendered. She gave up what she needed for herself. She made those choices. Therefore, she created it. There's a lot of talk on the other side about co-creation, which is on this side too. That together we can create something. We're individuals, yes. We're finite though, until we're out of flesh. And that's not a negative. That should be an impetus, because we can only accomplish certain things with a body. So he's about, and like the same thing with off-planet beings. Some of them are here to guide us about a lot of the messages that I'm getting. I'll just say them. It's about the center of the planet, that there's a lot of life, like there's a whole other life in the middle of the planet. And that the outer layer, there are animals, and there are rivers, and there are forests, and there are all these other layers of living life that don't even exist on the surface anymore. And that, and a bit of it is actually underground, really Middle Earth in China, and Middle Earth, like Iran and that part of the world. There's a lot going on in Africa too. There's a lot of spaces. And there's some in Europe as well, but there's some deep stuff that will save us as a species if we allow it. But there are other species living there now that are not from here. And if the mentality is warlike and destruction-like, it won't go. The human beings, the humanoids that want to be destructive will be destroyed. And so I just sit back. I mean, I live in the United States of America, what used to be America, and it used to be United States, and we used to have a constitution, and it's a very interesting time. Like the Chinese I Ching would say, we live in interesting times. And it's not a joke. Like I'm like sitting here as a witness to it all, not knowing, people like getting so political. We have people in Los Angeles being swept up and taken away. And it's being orchestrated by the government. That's, what are my feelings about that? It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that we as a species, this is the other thing. I don't know if you believe in crop circles and what they are. But before COVID, there was a crop circle in England that looked like the COVID virus that was put into the wheat. And then COVID hit. And it happened again during COVID. This whole planet was put on shutdown. Everything stopped. That was our big opportunity for change. And as a species, it didn't get fulfilled. And it's a half measure. So this is the repercussions of that half measure. There's a lot of change. That's what they keep saying. A lot of change, a lot of change, a lot of change. What does that mean? I, as a human, don't know exactly what that means. What I know as a human is that I need to keep focused on what I can do. So I work with people, and I work with groups, and I do my crystal bowls and my other bowls, healing work out into the world. I use Zoom a lot because the frequency does transmit for some blessed reason, thank goodness. Of course, it's better in person. And I celebrate being alive. And that's what they want us to do. How will they know the difference? is when somebody's celebrating. It's like a light that goes off, our aura light or whatever you want to call it, or our soul light. It just expands. And because I do this work and people like me do this work, we're expanding and we're raising the frequency to a place where destruction cannot stop the frequency. So while there is still this underlining destruction and distraction going on, and it's all lower frequency. Now, we need some lower frequencies. That's part of the spectrum of sound. We need some of them, but they need to vibrate in a clean way and hold space in a clean way. And this is really crucial. And they are here to help us do that. But we have to be willing to be available, to be without personality. Not permanently, you don't shrivel up and disappear. You just don't have to be grandiose. You don't have to be gross. You don't have to take from someone else. You can help people. You can love people without any strings attached. There's kindness. Oh, are there species, off-planet being species that are mean and cruel and destructive, like the reptiles? And yeah, but there are also positive reptiles that don't do that. And that's their business. Still have to focus on the frequency, still have to raise it, still have to bring it up. Please, going around to the different, like the chakras of the planet, if you will, these portals, these openings into the earth that emit the energy that we need to just clean it all up. To get into panic and fear doesn't serve yourself or anyone else. It's a time for kindness. Reject hatred. That's what I say. Reject hatred. Why do you need to destroy someone else? If you were the hungry stranger in the land, wouldn't you want somebody to come and offer you some food? Or maybe a safe shelter from the storm? Why can't you do that for someone else? It's about scriptures and holy beings. We're all holy beings. But we have to clean it out to be a holy being. That's why I love the 12 steps of any 12-step program. Because the 12 steps are divinely inspired to teach addicts, alcoholics, the downtrodden, how to process what they've done and who they are and how it manifests in their life and change it. And what changes is not the it, it's our relationship to the it. And from that place, it turns things around. And then when you're looking for things from the other side, you have aha moments and you have loving moments. And then you can see more things that are alike and less things that are destructive. This is really about stop being destructive. The destruction. Destroy destruction. And when you're distracted, why are you being distracted? What is distracting you? What is so important that it takes your focus away from just being? Who do you think you are? What do you need to do? Really, what do you need to do? Many times the answer is, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, then don't do. Just sit there until you get a message. You'll get a message, but you got to get out of your head. Make room, breathe, meditate. If you can do that, I do. I pray. I live in prayer. That's me. I live in prayer. I live asking for guidance. I ask for kindnesses. I ask to be shown who needs help. I got a call from somebody the other day, and they're in deep pain. And they had a horrific experience. Horrific. And my heart just broke. I had no idea. I don't know, left up to Leigh's devices to do to help this person. So I call in my angels. I call in their angels. And I say, please guide me, guide them. Please give me an intuitive thought. I'm listening. Let me know what to say. I mean, even preparing for meeting with you today, it was like clearing, not knowing. And and that's one of the gifts of my brain tumor. It was like I got diagnosed in January or August, the summer, and then I wouldn't have my surgery until October. And I had to practice not knowing what it was until I had a tangible answer of what it was. And people kept trying to tell me I had cancer, I had this. I said, I don't know that. Why are you putting that on me? I'm not, no, that's not me. That's you. You're projecting. And sure enough, it was benign. It was not cancerous. And it was wrapped up in things, and it took a long time to unwrap it. But the reality is that I learned then through that experience. That's what I'm saying. When life happens, it's teaching us. Life is the greatest teacher there is. Why are the off-planet beings coming to this planet? Well, I think some for natural resources and minerals, but other for our species, and to not to save the planet, to help us learn how to be more loving, more caring, more responsible. So, and the other part of that I find fascinating, this is me, is that they are so far advanced. We're so young in terms of the overall understanding of how to do things and build machines or sciences. Like we're finally, and don't you think they had something to do, making breakthroughs on healing processes, destroying cancer. This is the time that they told us there would be cures for things that we couldn't imagine. And it's here. It's happening. It's not mass produced yet, but it's happening. And I'm seeing more and more universities, medical schools, sciences discovering cures for things that people really suffered with, and not that long ago, and still sometimes suffer with today because it's not available on a mass scale. So more, and actually that's probably the best reason for destruction, because it's chaos theory. It has to break down so that it can build. And in chaos, which is different necessarily than destruction and distraction, but the fast-moving energetic fields that come together in what is perceived as a collision. It's not a collision, but it's happening so fast. That's how movement is created. That's why when people have feelings or emotions, energy moving inside of themselves, it's the same thing as chaos theory. And the only way is to allow it to be so you can see it, you could touch it, you could feel it, you could interact with it. Once you can interact with something like a being or a part of yourself, once you can interact with it, then the healing process can begin. And it can continue and make all its morphs and changes that it needs to acquire another frequency of love. It's like, why it sounds so boring sometimes. It's just about love. But that power, that density, that experience I had on January 3rd, 1991, that was like nothing on this planet. It was not human. It was not earthly. It was other. And that other is our unified soul. And so to be a part of a unification, you have to want it. To want to be part of a unification, you have to let go of that individuation. And it's not a negative, and it's not hurtful.
I think that's fascinating when you think of letting go of being the individual idea that you're separate. Right? It's not about becoming, letting go of uniqueness. It's about letting go of this separation, I think. So and this idea that you are something more than someone else or than something else. You're not more than your source, right? In the Course in Miracles, it says that one of the world came about through a crazy, tiny mad idea, right? Craziness. Anyways, the idea of separation. So this idea that you could be better than your source, right? You could make better decisions than the source you came from. So that's something we can't do. It's impossible. So this illusion came about in which you have this experience where you think you're separate and you can actually make up a whole experience where you are the boss, even though many of us don't think we are. But anyways, yes, like you said, there's this whole, when you go deeper, people start to recognize that they're responsible for their experiences and they've chosen them, like you were speaking of, right? And on the other hand, there's a deeper place where things are coming from. That's our source, which actually has orchestrated everything in perfect harmony and benignly, and in a way that actually everything works out for everyone's good. In A Course in Miracles, it says we can all be perfectly happy at the same time. It's not something where you need to take anything away from anyone or anything, because we all are, in nature, love, and so we are perfectly happy in our nature. So it's all about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And these blocks are misinterpretations. They're not actual blocks in the sense of there being something in the way. So I think that, so when you speak about this density of experience that you had, you got some insight into what it means to actually let go of that idea that you're separate and accept the uniqueness within the illusion that we're living, right? The uniqueness that is needed to move out of it. Or I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. It's funny because people will die for their uniqueness. They will go to such lengths to just be whatever perception of illusion that they want to maintain. How much energy does it take to maintain that illusion? And how much energy saved when you surrender and you don't do that? First you surrender, you just stop. And you're like, okay, now what? Nothing. Now what? Nothing. Just sit there, breathe. What does it feel like to be in your own skin? How do you get grounded? How do you stay present? What do you mean? How do you stay in your body? How do you not just jump into the next thing? And that is an open door right now. It's not a smooth path for many. They're still in automatic response mode. And that's not a judgment. That's just a reality check. We have to know who we're standing in front of. To have a conversation with somebody, you need to see if they're available. In our household, we check in with each other. We had the honor of adopting a daughter. We were her foster parents, and she became our daughter. And she came to us when she was 12 and a half, and she was raised in a situation with an active drug addict, and she lost her siblings, and she was all alone, and then she came to us, and it was like when we sat down, when the judge said that we could be her parents, and we sat down and I said, okay, we're going to draw up a contract. She looked at me and she thought Joni and I were going to set up the contract. And I said, no, no, honey, you're going to be part of this too. And so she said, what do you mean? I said, well, what are your limits? What do you need to do for you when you're overwhelmed and you can't communicate, or you're pissed off, or whatever it is? And then we sat down, we all wrote what our needs were. And then we made agreements according to those needs. And we all signed it. We all put our initials next to each one and we signed it. And the number one agreement was, if you need space, then you say, I need space, and you take the space. But it's then your responsibility to come back to the others and share what's going on when you can. And that was agreed to. She still does. She does that with her kids, my granddaughters. It's amazing. It brings tears of joy and relief. There's such relief and joy. Do you know that? You ever you get so excited from the joy and you're like, la, la, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's no hangover. There's just appreciation and curiosity and awe. And those are my touchstones. Those are it. Because we have jobs to do here. And we have jobs to do there. It's not over. When the thing I could tell you about being a person who died and came back here, it ain't over. You just don't have this physique that you have right now. But you still got stuff to do and assistance to make and help and do, if that's who you are. And one of the gifts of recovery is I watch people who most people would reject in terms of society. And I watch them find themselves. I watch the light come on in their eyes. And I watch them become beings that can have self-esteem and do esteemable acts and help people and care and love and struggle and not quit on themselves. Not everybody, but a lot of them. Is that not glory? That's absolute glory in my book. I think just like the 12 steps is one modality, I think the Course in Miracles is yet another modality. Similar in focus, different and similar. There are many paths to the top of the mountain, as long as it's based in love and kindness. That's the most important variables. Those are the most important variables. Yeah,
I agree that is really, really, really important. When you speak of things, it's so interesting how people can get all caught up about who's guiding you, who's the one, and what does that look like, and so on. When we go into the depth of it, it's about, like you said, love and kindness and sharing and willingness to walk together and to see each other's ideas and be open about it. It's all very, very, very important. And so, according to A Course in Miracles, Jeshua is saying there's only one curriculum, but we do have the choice when we learn what, but we don't have the choice about what we have to learn. So the lesson that we get the opportunity to choose what we want to learn when it's appropriate, right? We don't get the choice of the curriculum because it's a universal curriculum. It's one that's for everyone. And that's a powerful thing to say, right? And then it also speaks about the difference between specialness and equality, because we are not special, but we are equal. And the power of equality compared to specialness. because it also compares the special relationship to the holy relationship. And the special relationship is what you were saying. We try to grab things from someone, we try to take it, to have it, and things like that. And in the holy relationship, we give freely, and we have more and more because we're giving everything. And we recognize each other as whole. It's a very powerful contrast when we think about it.
You're reminding me of one of my experiences back in the 70s when I was in this Jewish drug program and in Little Neck, New York. And I went there because I wanted free therapy because I kept falling in love with girls. And long story short, I broke the rules. I wound up sleeping. I wound up kissing one girl, or she kissed me. And we had to go back and report on ourselves. And they said, oh, it's okay, just don't let it happen again. We'll just brush it under the rug. And then we had summer vacation, and my closest friend in the program she was pissed at me. And long story short, she wound up seducing me, and I didn't say no. And it was the first time I had an emotional sexual relationship with another woman or girl at the time because we were young. And for the first time in my life, I felt normal, and everything made sense. And I didn't feel like I was faking it, and I felt like I belonged. But we had to go back to the program and tell them what happened. And all hell broke loose. And they made me get a doll and a box. I had to paint the box. I had this accident where I had ripped my knee open. I had 60 stitches inside my left knee, and they have this group called General, and then there were set groups. Anyway, they made me stand on a box in the middle of this group of 70 people. All the women and girls had to turn their back away because I was such a venomous lesbian something, right? And I would destroy them. And their men and the boys could say anything they wanted to me. And they were saying horrible, disgusting things. Just disgusting. Hate, hate, hate. And I stood there, and I had these stitches in my leg, and I was like, what am I doing? And so then this went on for 4 hours, and I was tired. And they said, okay, let's break up into set groups. They're the individual support groups. So I went into my set group, and the director and the assistant director of the program came into my set group. And I was sitting on the floor, and I wouldn't get on the box. And I had done hypnotherapy with the director of this program for 3 years. I trusted him with my everything. And I felt extremely betrayed, but I didn't know I felt betrayed at the time. Anyway, he said, get on the box, Leigh. And I said, nope. He said, get on the box, Leigh. I said, nope. He said, get on. I said, no, there's nothing left for me here. I'm leaving. And I got up and I left. And I walked out the door, and I went home. And I never went back at that point. I didn't return. And then I get a call from the assistant of the program, and he said, why don't you come back? Let's finish this. I said, no, you're telling me what I did was wrong and there's nothing left. Listen, you just come and do a few rituals, having closure and stuff like that, and we'll go on from there. I said, so I agreed, because anyway, they had me take the doll and bury it, and I had to sit on the box, and I had to sit Shiva for myself. And if you don't know what that is, that's in the Jewish tradition. You sit on a hard surface to grieve the mourning of a dear one. And I had to sit Shiva for myself, which is not done. And then they had me reading out the Bible. And I was reading all these things. And then one night I was sitting there in the room reading, and this light appeared behind me, and this energy field appeared behind me, and I turned around, and it was Jesus, who I knew as Jesus. And he moved towards me, and I freaked out. I'm Jewish. He's Jewish too, but I'm Jewish. And what is he doing in this room, in this Jewish drug program, coming towards me? So I ran out of the building. I ran down. I still had those stitches in my leg. And I'm running, and my father comes by, and he picks me up in the car as I'm running down the side of the freeway. And I couldn't talk. And the next day I go to my friend, and he's a born-again Christian, and I said, Paul, I need a Bible, and I need to go with you to your church. I just need to go where people believe. And he said, what is going on with you? I said, I can't talk, just please. So we went that night to his church. And as soon as I walked in, this woman started talking in tongues. Now, I'm Jewish. We don't talk in tongues. I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, she's receiving a message. Then this other woman says, I'll testify. I'll tell her. Anyway, that woman repeated everything that happened to me in that room with this entity that came towards me, okay? Spelled it out to you. I said, Paul, let's get out of here. He said, did this really? I said, can we get out of here? And he said, yeah, sure, come on. The energy that I felt that night in that room was the same energy I felt in my near-death experience. I could tell you that today. What I learned from that experience since then was that Jesus is not Christianity. And that religion is not spirituality. Because they don't deal with the soul. They deal with controlling people and rituals to try and reenact something from the past, as opposed to bringing the past forward. That's a lot of what, like in Judaism, it's the rituals bring the past forward. And I imagine, like, I love going to churches and lighting candles. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-religion, but the experience of that was so pure and so clean and so full and so loved that he was there to say to me that what was going on in that program was wrong and that they didn't have the right to try and destroy me because I was having feelings and loving somebody else, same gender, same sex, whatever. And that there was nothing wrong with that was predetermined by people, by humans who wanted to control the masses, not to help the individual. And so for me, the split in this lifetime comes in dealing with the souls of people and trying to help them be the best them they can be and I can't fall into dogma. I will take what I like and I will leave the rest. And that happens on every level. And that experience of that almighty energy, Jeshua, as you say, right? Jeshua. That I understand that because the unspoken name of God is Yahweh, something Yahweh. It's actually Yahweh, but in Hebrew, so there's no difference there in a way, it's just letters. And what are words and their sounds, and what are sounds, their communications, and some people get understanding from these words, or people feel safe because they're in a certain space. Why do they feel safe in a church? And I say, well, because many people bring their loving hearts into that structure and leave it there and reach for the depths of their souls, when they're singing their hymns, even though it's not the words, it's the melody that saves the soul. It's the vibration. It's the frequency of love. And that is really, really, really important to me. And I know there are some people present, I think, in writing or something. I can't see it because I took my
Yes.
glasses.
Yauke would like to say something. You're welcome to unmute yourself, Yauke. Go ahead. If not, we will continue. Okay.
You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I was saying, thank you for the way you described your experience and how you relied on your direct experience of Yeshua, of the divine, of your experiences of the divine, of God, and how you no longer need to worry about whether it's written in one way or another, but you rely on your experience to decide how to understand what is appropriate, what is helpful, and what isn't. And because there's so much you can misinterpret in any text, because words certainly cannot convey the whole truth. The truth is something experienced, and not something that is bound to a form.
You remind me. I used to study, take Torah study and study the Bible, and always studying about Moses because this is the first, it's the Old Testament, and I would always argue that he was the most self-centered creature in the Bible was Moses, and that his motivation was not clean, but he got schlepped along with the rest of them, and he was forced to do things beyond his comprehension. And I think that's the truth of Moses, and that we're all asked to do things not beyond our ability, beyond our comprehension of what our ability is. And so in that comprehension of what your, if you stop thinking about what your ability is, you'll soar. We're capable of doing, this has been said so many times. You could do so much more. You could do so much more. And that's true. The truth resonates inside of us, that God spark in our hearts is the peace of the divine that lives within each and every one of us. There's that voice, whatever voice it is to you, that says yes and no, that you go, yes. You have this complete alignment that is present 24/7. It never leaves. The only time it leaves is when the body drops and goes and falls, and it rejoins the greater soul. Because in my experience, that God spark not only keeps the heart going, but it lives inside our flesh, and then our greater soul lives outside of our flesh. And so that connection, that aha moment that you get when all of a sudden something feels very familiar, that deja vu, they say in English, I've been here before. Well, maybe it's the agreement you made before you incarnated into this life, and you get to check off a box now, spiritually speaking, of course, and moving on from there, and having the infinite possibilities and not knowing what any of them are, but feeling excited just to experience the excitement. It always brings me back to that moment standing outside my great-grandmother's door, staring at her praying, in that magic of that light and how it hit me. It wasn't a Jewish thing or a non-Jewish thing. It was just a moment in anytime we experience the highest form, we get a zhuzh. people in 12-step programs get it every time they sit in a meeting, whether they're aware of it or not. They're connected. They don't have to surrender if they're sitting there. I don't know how it manifests in A Course of Miracles, but I imagine there's something similar to it. When you're reading the words that are written and everybody's reading the same words and you're reaching for the same common understanding, the through line, the connectedness. Those are the important moments that we all treasure and share. That's what's important. Money can't buy this. Money cannot buy this. You could be the richest person in the world. And look at them. They keep showing their faces on the TV screen. How happy are they? Or they don't seem happy, heart happy. I'm not talking about happy, smiling, laughing, making jokes, putting people down, destroying people, getting joy from those kind of experiences. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not joy. That's just energy that's received from the ego. That's not a heartfelt experience. And it may feel like a heartfelt experience. I don't doubt that. But I don't believe, we're all one. So if we're all one, this is going to be I don't get into politics too much, but this is one thing I will say about political situations. I hate what's happening, but somebody is representing the shadow side, or several people are representing the shadow side. And to think that I am different than that being is a lie. And that I choose to not live in that part. But when I was on drugs, I did dastardly things, unkind things. Who's to say they're not as destructive or devastating to somebody? Who's to say? I had to take responsibility for that truth. The difference between people living in the darker shadows than in the light is that they haven't taken responsibility for whatever reason. They haven't been able to, or they just won't. But we need them because we have to be one, and it all exists.
It's the technical issue. So, Yauke, you wanted to say something? Go ahead, and then I'll start wrapping up things with Leigh. Just need to press the microphone button again, then you can speak.
Sorry, I pressed the button. Didn't mean to. Thank you, Leigh.
Okay. So, Leigh, I think we've been starting to get into the really deep issues here, and it's been getting really exciting. It's hard for me to say it's time to wrap things up because it's getting really, really fascinating. So I'm very happy you've been willing to share and to go into the depth of things, and I really feel very deeply that this universal experience that you're speaking of, that is beyond any form or dogma or anything, and this recognition that we don't need to judge, because otherwise we would be judging ourselves as well, because no matter whether we know or don't know, we have done plenty of buying into separation thinking ourselves, whether we want to recognize it or not. And it's great to be able to accept the responsibility, but if you don't, it's also available, and we've all done it. So, and we still are in many aspects that we're not aware of yet. Right. So I'm very thankful for your honesty and for your willingness to speak about this issue. And it's an amazing thing to be able to say, okay, my family and my tradition I grew up in is Jewish, but who was I speaking with? It was Jesus who came and told me, you're okay. And yes, you're right. Jesus, um, it, officially, one could say Jesus is a Jew, and Christianity is something that was made out of what came from there, and is not what the organization he belonged to, because he didn't. There was no such organization when he was alive, right? In the flesh, I mean. So, yeah, it's a very important distinction. So, thank you for that. I couldn't hear you. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Thank you. And this was an absolute gift. What a wonderful way to spend time together. And thank you. It was wonderful meeting you and sharing space with you. And thank you for allowing me the space and all of us the space. And this was wonderful. Thanks, truly.
Thank you so much once again. And thank you, everyone who's joining us in whatever way you are, also those present now and those who will be present when watching or listening to this episode. And please feel free to reach out or review the podcast or share thoughts you have or comments or even questions, so that we can, as a community, respond to them with whoever does. And please reach out to me if you want to be a guest on the podcast, and please let people know about it so they can join. And I'm really happy when people are able to have the live experience as well, because that's what some of you have had today, where you can actually comment and ask questions during the recording. And that's a very important aspect of this podcast as well. So thank you, all of you, and blessings until next time.